Welcome everyone to this new episode of the Privacy Rules Privacy Espresso series, a series where we delve into the latest news on privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity from all over the world. Today we are delving with both privacy and cybersecurity because we are having a second episode as a part of a series of sessions where we want to address on how to building a unified compliance strategy within NIS2, CRA, DORA, and the GDPR. So we are touching upon all of them. Today, I would say that we are going to address one of the most relevant framework of the moment, which is the NIS2 one. And we are going to do so together with our colleague from the Belgian law firm Timelex, which is Bernd Fiten, which is a great expert in the matter. So first of all, hi, Bernd, nice to have you here. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alessandro.
Thank you, thank you. And as I always say at the beginning, privacy espressos are super short, so I would like to immediately go through the topic of the day. As I was saying, is NIS2. And one of the key suggestions that we receive when we read materials on this framework is that NIS2 appears as an essential cybersecurity baseline, in particular in the broader context of the frameworks that we have in the EU. Do you believe this is true? And if so, why?
Well, absolutely, Alessandro. I think NIS2 is the baseline. It covers so many more businesses than the old rules, NIS1. So a lot more organizations now have to meet certain cybersecurity standards. And it's not just about ticking boxes. NIS2 is about real responsibility because it makes top managers like CEOs, boards, directly responsible for cybersecurity. And that's a huge shift, in my opinion. This means that cybersecurity should become a top priority, not just something the IT department deals with. It needs to get the attention, the money, the people it needs, and that's a big difference.
We're speaking with you as a legal, and one of the key points of NIS2 is indeed that there is this kind of combination and merge between the legal aspects and the cybersecurity ones. So what do you believe are the reasons why we can speak about NIS2 as a baseline under the legal perspective?
Well, NIS2 is really comprehensive. It looks at the whole picture. It's all about managing risk. One of the important things it focuses on is supply chains. Think about it. Those are the companies you work with, your suppliers. If they have weak security, it can cause you huge problems. Imagine you're a manufacturer, right? And your supplier of some really important parts gets hit with ransomware. Boom, your whole production line grinds to a halt. And that's the kind of risk NIS2 is designed to address.
That's very interesting, Ben, also because I understand that then many other companies might be technically involved into the framework, the need of complying with it, and I understand so that the NIS2 is really worried about supply chain. So how do you think the NIS2 help companies in addressing those risks related to that specific point?
Okay, so here's the thing. NIS2 doesn't really tell you exactly what you have to do to secure your supply chain. And there is actually a very good reason for that because the risks are always changing. So what works today might be useless tomorrow. So instead of being super specific in the main law, the nitty-gritty details are in something called an implementing regulation from the European Commission. So because these regulations can be updated much quicker and easier than in the main law itself. And it gives the EU more flexibility to react to new threats just as they pop up. So it's much more an agile approach, which I think is nowadays crucial for cybersecurity.
Okay, that's yeah. I mean, I think it's part of the game whenever you deal with the world of cyber, meaning that as much as the attackers are evolving, we need to evolve at the same time under the regulatory perspective, but also under the preparatory perspective for companies. And I was mentioning before about the possibility for other companies to be involved by NIS2, not only the ones that strictly fall within the scope of it. Do you believe this is true, or was just my guessing? And in case you think my guessing is right or wrong, why?
No, your guessing is absolutely right. It's a crucial point. And in all honesty, it's something that many companies overlook. So even if you don't fall directly under NIS2, you might still need to consider it because of your customers. So many of your customers, especially larger companies, they will fall under NIS2. And one of the key things that NIS2 requires them to do is to secure their supply chains. That means that they'll be asking their suppliers, which might be your company, about your cybersecurity practices. So even if you're not directly regulated by NIS2, your customers might require you to meet certain NIS2 related standards as a condition of doing business with them. So they will need to demonstrate that suppliers are also taking cybersecurity seriously, of course. So ignoring NIS2 just because you think it doesn't apply to you directly could be a big mistake and could mean losing business.
Okay, it sounds a bit like the accountability principle under GDPR, where a company dealing with other companies need to make sure that certain requirements are respected, involving automatically all those other companies to be indeed compliant as well with a certain framework. This makes we have the bigger picture. We know now that there are many companies that are directly or indirectly involved, and that there is an continuously evolving landscape on the side of the cybersecurity. So, do you believe that needs to somehow help companies in keep pace with the emerging threats and stay relevant with that? And how do you believe it works in that specific part?
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. So how does NIS2 handle this? Well, one of the examples is that it makes companies report cyber attacks. And that's really important because when companies share what happened to them, everyone learns about the latest threats. And the collective learning is vital, isn't it? It helps us all understand what's happening out there and figure out how to protect ourselves better. And also, NIS2 focuses on resilience, which is key, I think, because let's face it, you can't always stop every single attack. So it's not just about prevention, it's about making sure your business can keep running even if you're hit. And that ability to bounce back quickly is absolutely essential these days, especially with threats changing so fast these days.
That's fascinating, of course, complex, but keeping business continuity is definitely one of the key element of our age. In this regard, I'd like also to add an additional layer of complexity, if we didn't do that enough yet, which is multiple jurisdiction compliance, meaning that we know that the framework, the NIS2, for example, is going to be applied in the various countries, but is not exactly always the same. So how do you believe that NIS2 is impacting businesses, in particular when they are operating across multiple countries?
Yeah, so think back to before NIS1, that was a real mess of different cybersecurity rules. And NIS1 started to tidy things a bit up, and NIS2 builds on that, covering way more businesses and making rules stronger. But remember, NIS2 is a directive. So countries, they write their own laws to put it into action. So this means there might be some differences between countries, but even though everyone is aiming for the same overall goals.
Yeah, and I think one key point, as you were saying, is that NIS2 is a directive, and even in a case like GDPR, that was a regulation, still we had some differences in some countries. So it's really difficult to keep consistency, which is still the one of the key let's say targets of NIS2. But as you say, there might be some differences. Do you have any example based on your practice of those differences that you have been facing on NIS2 implementation over different countries?
Yeah, exactly. It aims for consistency, but Once again, it's not one single unified law across the EU like a regulation, unfortunately. Not every country even has its national NIS2 law in place yet. But actually, Belgium was one of the first, if not the first, member state to have its own NIS2 law in place. And that is, by the way, very unusual for Belgium. That said, there will still be some variations, as you mentioned. For example, boards are responsible for cybersecurity, but the exact level of cybersecurity knowledge they need to have might be different from country to country. So there is a common baseline, but with some local twists, I would say. But even so, it's a huge improvement. It sets core cybersecurity rules that everyone has to meet. And I think just that is great for businesses. They don't have to start from scratch in each country. So it's simpler, saves money, and more importantly, it levels the playing field a bit more.
So I perceive that you already see a step forward in any case, which is a positive news. And of course, sharing information and experiences is one of the key elements whenever you work in this sector. I promise that's my last question, and then I leave you and our audience free, Bernd, but that's so interesting. So according to the discussion we are having, there is a lot indeed in the NIS2 that relates to cybersecurity and technical issue, but I'm speaking with you as a lawyer, and I believe it's important to stress on the reasons why also lawyers should be involved into the process of complying with NIS2 related projects. So can you help us understanding why it's so relevant to have you as part of it, and probably to have you as soon as possible, because one of the issues is often to ask support by lawyers in a too late stage, and then there are so many things to revise.
Yeah, you save the best questions for last, Alessandro. It's a good question, because in my experience, it's absolutely crucial that legal teams are also involved. So NIS2 isn't just about technical controls, it has significant legal implications as well, which IT teams typically overlook. If you don't follow NIS2, you could face big fines, legal trouble, damage to your reputation. So I think legal teams are key for understanding the rules in each country, especially if you do business across multiple member states. And also, legal teams are super important when it comes to contracts, policies, procedures. For example, legal teams, they write and check contracts with suppliers. They make sure those contracts include the right security stuff. And if there is a data breach or some kind of cyber incident, legal teams are needed to help you navigate all the legal stuff, like reporting the incident, potential lawsuits, dealing with NIS2 authorities, or even data protection authorities if personal data are involved. So IT teams are essential for the technical side of NIS2, but legal teams are just as important for making sure you're following the law and avoiding legal trouble. It's really a team effort, and you need both sides covered.
Thank you, Bernd. That was extremely well received, I would say, and in particular because your opening sentence was "laws have consequences," which is true indeed, and that's why companies should be aware of the fact that we are facing a legal framework that needs to be respected under all the points and perspective you have been sharing with us. Bernd, I would like to thank you very much for finding the time of being with us today and explaining all those very practical aspects of NIS2 implementation under all the point of view. I think everyone can feel and understand how much you work in the sector. So I would like to invite everyone, in particular dealing with Belgium, to contact you directly or to contact us for any need related to those type of frameworks. I would like to thank once more our audience for being with us today, and I look forward to our next Privacy Espresso with just one more point please make sure to sign for our upcoming webinar on the 20th of March on these topics. We will be with Bernd and other colleagues of our Privacy Rules team to go even more in depth into those topics and to respond to your questions. So looking forward to meet you all there. Bernd, thanks a lot, and looking forward to see you very soon again.
Thank you, Alessandro. See you next time.